follow up on Senator Orr's questions on natural gas. I come from a part of the state where Marcellus shale gas is prevalent and would be a great economic boon to the entire region. Should we be allowed to explore for natural gas in the state, which I think was a mistake not to pursue, at least in some limited form, so we could actually study the environmental impacts of that. Having said that, I want to separate electricity uses from the multitude of uses for electricity and then heating. And our heating fuel sources, according to reports that I've read, indicate that our heating fuel sources is like 95% fossil fuel based, major portion being natural gas. Would you agree or disagree with that mix of fuel sources for heating purposes?
That sounds about right.
And I think our goals for electricity and renewables and cleaner energy are laudable in the state. And as you said in your remarks, we're doing more in New York State than any other state does in this regard. But I am concerned about the more that we do, the more detriment it is to the cost of electricity in New York State and our ability to be competitive in New York State, not just in paying your own home utility bills, but for manufacturing and other high-load users of that energy. And I think that the state's approach to natural gas has been one with pipelines being rejected, at least 3 major significant pipelines being rejected in the last year. We're not living up to those needs, particularly with regards to expanding use of cleaner natural gas as opposed to oil and coal. But I want to read a recent comments from Craig Ivey at Con Edison, where he recently said, "We must recognize that the move to greater use of renewables and other distributed energy resources will happen over time, not all at once. In the meantime, Con Edison has an obligation to provide New Yorkers with the energy they need today to keep their homes and businesses warm and lit. It is simply not possible to provide all the energy we need for our residents and businesses with wind, solar, battery storage, and other alternative methods. We need inexpensive, plentiful natural gas to meet our energy needs as we develop more renewable resources. Con Ed is concerned about the ability to provide reliable electricity and heating, given the uncertainty around New York State's permitting of new or expanded natural gas transmission infrastructure." What is your perspective where it comes to the state's recent actions in regards to rejecting pipelines for added natural gas supply to get not just to New York State consumers, but to consumers across the Northeast and New England in particular? And what approach are you going to take in your position should you be confirmed with regards to the demand for cleaner burning natural gas?
So, if confirmed, I imagine that when I saw the record, when I had a chance to see the record that's developed, I would come to the same conclusion that the Public Service Commission has regularly come to, which is that where they make environmental and economic sense, the expansion of natural gas distribution should be advanced. And I made that point earlier, and we are clicking up on the number of natural gas customers in the state. Now that's the distribution system. That's not the transmission that Craig Ivey was mentioning, but the distribution system is the part that falls under the purview of the commission. So that's where, if confirmed, I could pay attention. To your other point that you made, that the transition to renewables, or that Craig Ivey made, the transition to renewables is not going to come all at once. That's right. That's why we're flat out on renewables in order to get there stepwise in a way that makes sense.
In your role as in NYSERDA, basically the budget of NYSERDA is funded on the backs of the ratepayers, with additional fees and charges on everybody's utility bill, whether it's at their home or at their business, and that has funded the programming that you've been able to do at NYSERDA, correct?
For the most part, NYSERDA's programs are funded by ratepayers, as you described.
Now, I have concerns with that being your background as the head of NYSERDA and decision-making at PSC, and perhaps your views, or what are your views on the reliance of charges to ratepayers on their bills to fund these renewable projects?
So the best way to answer the second part of your question is to look at the Clean Energy Fund, which was a 10-year, $5 billion investment of ratepayer funds in clean energy solutions. That is designed to deliver more than $30 billion in ratepayer savings. So my, whatever job I'm in, I think 30 for 5 is a pretty good deal.
Did you say 30 million or
30 billion.
30 billion.
So
Okay.
a multiple,
Yeah.
a good bang for the buck.
Over what period of time?
Over the lifetime of the, let's call it the measures. So I don't want to be evasive, but the $5 billion gets spent over 10 years, and what it could get spent on is something that is good for 7 years, like some energy efficiency project in a home, or maybe 25 years, solar panels in a field. But all the investments have a long life over which they yield benefits, which is why how you get to numbers that are so interesting. And I'm not sure I answered you may have had another part to your question?
No, I think you
Okay,
got
thank
it.
you.
Yeah. I think my time is up for now. Thank you. Yes, thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Rhodes. I want to talk a little bit about the energy highway that we used to hear a lot about 7 years ago when this administration took over and talked about energy highway and infrastructure needs, and we never hear about the energy highway in the last few years. That seems to me to be the weak link in our electricity system that we have in New York State, and I believe we have sufficient capacity for electricity generation throughout New York State, and we have problems getting that power to where it's needed, generally downstate, where they generally don't want to have power plants in their backyard. What is your vision for improving the energy highway and meeting those demands so that we can get homegrown power in New York State, so to speak, from our power plants upstate to where it's needed downstate?
My vision is that we need a backbone that's up to the task. And I think you make an observation which is maybe simple, but pretty important, which is a lot of the generation is going to be upstate. A lot of the load is going to be downstate, even in the future. And even with a distributed future with lots more solar downstate and CHP and the like. So getting those right is important. My observation is that the PSC is pretty serious about that. There's a series of significant projects that are, underway, and I will. I'll commit to paying serious attention to that issue because I know we need it.
And in that light, with the proposed Champlain-Hudson TDI line coming down Lake Champlain and the Hudson River with power from Canada, I have concerns both on the cost of that line and what your thoughts are with regards to whether ratepayers should pay for the cost of that line to bring power in from outside the country when we lack the backbone and energy highway within our state to get power from our existing power plants that could certainly feed that demand downstate. What are your thoughts on the Hudson-Champlain, the Champlain-Hudson line, and the cost, proposed cost of that being, I think, a minimum of $2 billion and probably much greater than that, and how that should be paid for?
That's one that I'll have to study and come up to speed on. You know, I think the principles set themselves. One, whatever the financing, economics, et cetera, of the project, they have to make, if the state's going to play a role, they have to make sense for New Yorkers. And the second is that we can't live with a future that's a bunch of one-offs. And if we know that we're having a clean energy standard that's talking about this much large-scale renewable energy here and this much load there, and this is the backbone that we need, let's have an integrated plan that gets the right backbone in place for those resources. And as I said, the clean energy standard is about renewable energy in New York delivered to New York. So
we need to have that effective and efficient excuse me, infrastructure to get the electricity from our solar farms and wind farms upstate to get down there, which we're lacking right now with that infrastructure.
I'm pretty sure that the facts will, yes, in a word, yes.
Well, my hope is that should you be confirmed to the PSC, that you certainly keep in high regard in your decision-making that the state not sacrifice in-state jobs at electrical generating facilities, taxes generated from those, property taxes generated from those, and the electricity producing, rather than looking to Canada and running an extension cord from there down that will be a detriment to our in-state power production.
If confirmed, I'll do everything in my power to get it right.
Thank you.